While Australia has done very well at almost completely avoiding the health impacts of this pandemic, the economic ravages will be much harder to escape. Official unemployment is now over 7%, with 835,000 people, that's almost 750,000, becoming officially unemployed since March. And since March too, hours worked are also down officially, in official terms, by 10%. But the most significant figures here are the 1.6 million people on the JobSeeker double dole and the 3.5 million Australians on the JobKeeper wage subsidy for enterprises, of course, that have lost at least a third of their business revenues. What these numbers mean is that almost 40% of the total Australian workforce are currently being sustained by the taxpayer. And when this sugar hit ends, as it must, quite a few of them will go from being job kept to unemployed, meaning it's a whole lot worse than it looks today. And today, it looked pretty bad. At the moment, we're like a patient coming out of an operation. The anesthetic is still wearing off, so we don't really feel the pain we're going to be in, but boy, the pain's coming. By year's end, when JobKeeper is wound up in September and when the double dole supposedly goes back to just $275 a week, and anyone who was made redundant has used up their redundancy, by then, that's when we'll really know just how deep and how long this recession is likely to be. That's when we'll know how many of the businesses put into hibernation will never wake up, and how many of the workers supported by the taxpayers won't go back to any sort of real job. Now, to his credit, Scott Morrison never wanted the shutdown to be as severe as the states have insisted on making it. He never wanted the schools to close. He never wanted the state borders shut. For well over a month now, he's been telling the premiers with increasing urgency that everything must be opened up. Now, for the premiers, this is my read, this has always been for them a purely political calculation. They'll get blamed for any COVID deaths, so they think, while the PM, he'll just cop all the economic pain. So they're putting the virus and their jobs ahead of your job. And that's even though everyone realises that livelihoods and lives lost as a result of years of economic pain could actually end up far worse than any death toll at the height of this pandemic. Even now, with just a handful of new cases a day and just only three corona cases in intensive care anywhere in the country, Queensland and South Australia still aren't opening their borders for about a month, and there's no sign that Western Australia or Tasmania will open their borders anytime soon, even though domestic border closures are supposedly costing all of us $1 billion a week plus 5,000 jobs. And even when our domestic economy is fully reopened, there's overseas education worth about $32 billion a year or 2% of GDP. That's likely to take years to recover. And international tourism, that brings us in about $45 billion a year or about 3% of GDP. And that won't be back to any sort of normal anytime soon. Now, maybe Australians will spend all the money they once spent going overseas on domestic tourism, but even so, it's hard to see these policy gaps being filled anytime soon. Maybe the union line will lie down with the business lamb. Maybe flexible arrangements might be on the way and will boost productivity and wealth that way. Maybe the states will suddenly drop their green fixations and we'll have new dams and new baseload power to boost farming and manufacturing as part of this whole new national cabinet process. Maybe. But maybe we'll all just sit in a circle and sing Kumbaya and it'll just work out fine. You and I both know that ahead of us, we have some tough decisions that need to be made, some of the toughest we will face as a country. This is a country where anyone under the age of 45 has only ever known good times. So have we got the ticker, I wonder, to make these decisions? And you've also got to wonder too, if a country like ours now wants to tear down the monuments of the past, are we really capable of rebuilding for our future? I said at the start of this crisis back in February, it would be a test of our character, and I suspect, even after today's pretty parlous numbers, that test is only just beginning.